Fleet Admiral Jung Hanul stood before the rebuilt Galactic Council chambers wearing her dress uniform and carrying a briefcase. Full of spore samples, the war was over, but the real work of building peace was just beginning. The council chamber looked very different now. Representatives from dozens of worlds that had been enslaved by the Vorak sat in the seats that had once been empty. The galaxy was free for the first time in centuries. Honorable delegates, Admiral Jung announced, I come before you not as a conqueror, but as a protector. The human fleet will guarantee the safety of any world that chooses freedom over tyranny. She opened her briefcase and placed spore containers on the podium. These organisms once brought terror to the galaxy, but humans have shown they can be transformed from weapons into food, from tools of death into sources of life. The alien delegates watched nervously as the Admiral ate a spore ration bar. Most species still could not understand how humans survived consuming the deadly organisms. Ambassador Li Hyun-woo stood to address the council. The age of biological warfare is over. Any species that attempts to use such weapons will find them turned against them. Humans will protect the innocent and feed our soldiers from the weapons of the wicked. On the former Vorak colony of Zarian, General Shinbyo Ram was establishing the first human protection school. Local children learned alongside human instructors how to identify and safely handle spore weapons. These organisms are not scary when you understand them, General Shin told her mixed class of human and alien students. Humans can eat them, but other species can learn to neutralize them. Young Zarian student Kayla Mai raised her tentacle. Professor, why can humans eat the death spores but we cannot? It is because humans evolved differently, General Shin explained. Your species is designed for your homeworld environment. Humans evolved to eat almost anything. That is why we can turn weapons into meals. The former Vorak territories were transforming rapidly. Commander Lim Tae-young opened the first interstellar spore restaurant chain. Galaxy Grill became famous for serving meals made from former weapons of mass destruction. Welcome to Galaxy Grill, Commander Lim announced in his restaurant advertisements. Where yesterday's weapons become today's meals, come try our famous Spore Supreme Pizza made with genuine Vorak military-grade organisms. The psychological impact was enormous. Species that had lived in fear of spore weapons for centuries now saw them advertised as dinner specials. The transformation from terror to normalcy was complete on Earth. Spore farming had become a major industry. Dr. Song Mire led research into cultivating the organisms for maximum nutrition and flavor. Her work turned biological warfare agents into sustainable food sources. We can grow enough spores to feed the entire human space fleet, Dr. Song reported, plus enough surplus to trade with alien species that can process them safely after preparation. The economic implications were staggering. Humans now controlled the production of what had once been the galaxy's most feared weapon. They could use spores as food currency or diplomatic gifts. Former General Vexmore of the Vorak military had become an unlikely ally. He worked as a cultural advisor, helping humans understand alien psychology and prevent future conflicts. I spent my life using fear as a weapon, Vexmore told his human colleagues in a meeting. Now I see there is a better way. You have shown that any weapon can be turned into something beneficial. He had adopted the human name David and wore human military insignia. The blue-skinned warrior who had once terrorized worlds now helped maintain galactic peace. Captain Oh Sung-min commanded the first mixed-species crew in human history. His ship included former Vorak soldiers, alien refugees, and human Marines, all working together to protect trade routes. The interesting thing, Captain Oh noted in his log, is that everyone gets along better when they know humans can eat any biological weapon used against the crew. The former enemies feel safer and the new allies feel protected. The Vorak themselves adapted remarkably well to the new order. Emperor Korthik had been replaced by a democratic council led by former Defense Minister Gregter, who now served as ambassador to humanity. We were wrong to rule through fear, Gregter admitted in his first speech to the Galactic Council. Humans have shown us that strength comes from protection, not destruction. They feed on what we used to kill. With the philosophical change was profound. The galaxy had learned that any weapon could become useless if the target could adapt to it. The universal fear of spore weapons disappeared when humans showed they could be eaten safely. Lieutenant Colonel Choi Min-ho established the Galactic Defense academy where humans taught other species advanced military tactics that did not rely on terror weapons. The old way of warfare, as Finnish Choi told his mixed class of alien military officers. Any species that tries to conquer through fear will find their weapons become our advantages. The most remarkable change was cultural. Human food traditions spread throughout the galaxy. Species that could not eat spores directly learned to prepare them safely through human cooking methods. Private Park Jin-woo became the galaxy's most famous chef. His cookbook, From Weapons to Meals, became required reading at diplomatic schools. His cooking shows were broadcast on every civilized world today. "We are making spore surprise," Park announced in his latest show. This recipe was created by former enemies working together. Vorak spices, human cooking methods, and Zarian vegetables. The galaxy was healing. Former slave worlds rebuilt their civilizations under human protection. Trade routes reopened, connecting species that had been isolated for centuries. Fear was replaced by cooperation. Admiral Park The-jin retired from military service to become the first Human Galactic Relations Director. Her job was ensuring that the new peace lasted and that humans used their power responsibly. "We did not fight this war to become conquerors," Park explained. In her inauguration speech, "We fought to show that weapons can become tools for peace. Any species that chooses cooperation over conquest will find humans as allies." The transformation was complete in less than 5 years. What had started as humanity's darkest hour had become the galaxy's brightest age. The war that began with humans eating alien weapons ended with former enemies sharing meals together. Captain Kim Tae-ho, who had started everything by eating spore weapons while starving on Luna Station, became the first human to receive the Galactic Peace Medal. The man who had accidentally discovered that humans could digest biological weapons was now honored as the savior of countless worlds. In his acceptance speech, Kim said something that became famous throughout the galaxy: "Sometimes the best way to defeat a weapon is to show it has another purpose. We turned instruments of death into sources of life. We made enemies into friends by sharing meals instead of sharing fear." The new galactic order was based on a simple principle. Any aggressor's weapons would become human advantages. Any tyrant's tools would be turned against tyranny. The age of conquest through terror was over. The age of peace through strength had begun, and it tasted better than anyone had expected. Admiral Park The-jin looked at Vorak Prime through her ship's window. The blue and silver planet had been the center of galactic terror for 1,000 years. Now it was about to experience what every other world had suffered under. Vorak ruled. The siege fleet surrounded the planet in perfect formation, 300 human ships carrying the most ironic cargo in galactic history. The same spore weapons the Vorak had used to conquer worlds were now loaded in human missile tubes. "Admiral, we are in position," Captain Kim Tae-ho reported from his command ship. "All vessels loaded with spore warheads, ready to deploy on your order." Park smiled as she remembered how this war had started. Kim had been the first human to eat spore weapons when he was starving on Luna Station. Now he was leading the attack that would end the Vorak Empire. Emperor Korthik stood in his palace, watching the human fleet through massive windows. He had ruled half the galaxy from this throne room, but now he felt like a prisoner in his own home. "Your Majesty," Defense Minister Gregter said, "the humans are broadcasting a message for you. Put it through." Korthik ordered. Admiral Park appeared on the communication screen. "Emperor Korthik, I am offering you one chance to surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, we will demonstrate what your own weapons can do when used properly." The Emperor's blue skin grew pale. "You would not dare use spore weapons against us. Those organisms are too dangerous to deploy in atmosphere." Park held up a spore ration bar and took a bite. "These organisms, you mean our food supply? We have been eating them for months, Emperor. They taste much better than you might expect." She gestured to Captain Kim, who appeared beside her eating a bowl of spore soup. "This is Captain Kim, the first human to discover your weapons were edible. He wanted to personally thank you for the recipe." Korthek felt his legs go weak. The human commanders were eating concentrated spores like candy while threatening to use those same organisms as weapons against his people. "We improved your design," Park continued. "Dr. Song Mireille and her team have created enhanced spores that are twice as effective against non-human biology while remaining perfectly safe for Human consumption Dr. Song Mireille appeared on screen holding a container of modified spores. We call these super spores version 2.0. They digest alien tissue faster while providing humans with even better nutrition, the Emperor looked at his military advisors but saw only fear in their eyes. The humans had taken the Vorak's greatest achievement and turned it into both food and weapon. You have 1 hour to decide, Park said. Either surrender now or we will bombard your planet with enough enhanced spores to kill every Vorak within days, while my soldiers enjoy them as field rations. The transmission ended, leaving the Emperor alone with his terror. The species that had conquered the galaxy through biological warfare was about to be destroyed by their own weapons. Captain Rudong Hyan was preparing for the ground assault phase. His Marines were checking their spore ration supplies and loading enhanced spore grenades. The irony was not lost on anyone. Sergeant, these spore grenades are beautiful, Private Nam Kite said, admiring the biological weapons. If the Vorak surrender, can we keep some for cooking? Captain Ru laughed. Everything is food to us. Nam, but let's try to win the war first. On Vorak Prime, panic was spreading through the population. Citizens who had lived comfortable lives while their empire used spore weapons on others now faced those same weapons themselves. Defense Minister Gregter tried to organize resistance, but the psychological impact was too great. Vorak soldiers refused to fight enemies who treated their ultimate weapon as snacks. Sir, the orbital defense stations are requesting permission to use spore weapons against the human fleet. Absolutely not, Gregter ordered. If we use spores against them, they will just eat them and get stronger. Then what do we do, sir? Our other weapons are centuries out of date. We pray the humans are merciful, Gregter replied. In the human fleet, Commander Lim Tae-young was broadcasting cooking shows to the planet below. He demonstrated proper spore preparation techniques while Vorak citizens watched in horror. Today, we are making spore kebabs, Commander Lim announced cheerfully. These are made from the same organisms your military used to kill 12 worlds. But properly prepared, they are quite delicious. The psychological warfare was devastating. Vorak civilians saw their most feared weapons being treated as party food by enemy soldiers. Their entire worldview was collapsing. Emperor Korthik called an emergency session of his High Council. The blue-skinned leaders who had ruled through terror for centuries now faced their own extinction. We could try negotiating. Prime Minister Thekvar suggested. Perhaps offer them tribute or territory. With what? Korthik asked. They eat our most valuable weapons. They have turned our greatest strength into their advantage. What could we possibly offer them? General Thexmore, who had been fighting humans for months, spoke from the front lines. Your Majesty, surrender is our only option. I have watched these creatures eat spore weapons while laughing at us. They are not normal. The hour deadline was approaching. Admiral Park prepared to give the order that would end the Vorak Empire. She felt no joy in it, but the aliens had brought this on themselves by using biological warfare against innocent worlds. Admiral, all ships report ready. Colonel Han So-young announced. Spore bombardment systems armed and targeted. Park looked at the planet one more time. She thought about all the worlds the Vorak had destroyed with these same weapons. Now those weapons would be used against their creators' fire. She ordered thousands of enhanced spore containers launched from the human fleet. They streaked through space toward Vorak Prime like falling stars of death, the same beautiful sight that had terrified dozens of worlds. But at the last moment, Emperor Korthik's voice cracked across all communication channels. We surrender, the Emperor said, his voice breaking. We surrender unconditionally to the human forces. Park held up her hands, signaling the fleet to abort the bombardment. The spore containers detonated harmlessly in space, creating pretty silver clouds that posed no threat to humans. Captain Kim broadcast the surrender terms to Vorak Prime. All Vorak military forces will stand down immediately. All spore production facilities will be transferred to human control. All conquered worlds will be released. The Vorak Empire that had ruled half the galaxy collapsed in a single day, brought down by their own ultimate weapon. The irony was perfect. The conquerors, destroyed by the very tool they had used to conquer others. Emperor Korthik signed the surrender documents while human soldiers ate spore rations in his throne room. The symbolism was clear. The age of Vorak terror was over. The age of human protection had begun, but the war was not quite finished yet. The real change would come in how humans chose to use their victory. The galaxy was watching to see If the new dominant species would rule through fear like the Vorak head Admiral Park had already decided, the humans would be different. They would rule through strength, not terror. They would protect, not conquer. They would turn weapons into food and enemies into allies. The great reversal was complete. General Dexmore had conquered 12 worlds, using spore weapons, but he had never faced anything like humans, the blue-skinned Vorak. Commander looked at his tactical display and felt something his species had forgotten how to feel fiercer. We have a problem, his aide, Commander Vextel, reported. The humans are not just surviving our spore attacks, they are requesting more. They sent us a shopping list. Dexmer grabbed the message and read it. The human fleet wanted different flavors of spores. They asked if the Vorak had any seasonal varieties. They even offered to pay with human food in exchange. This is madness, Dexmore said. No species in galactic history has ever eaten battle spores. How are these primitive creatures doing this, Captain? Oh, Sungmin was leading a raid on a Vorak supply depot. His soldiers moved through the facility like it was a grocery store. They ignored the alien weapons and went straight for the spore production labs. Look at all this food, Oh said to his sergeant. They have been making our meals for us and did not even know it. Sergeant Kwon Yun-soo opened container after container of concentrated spores. Each one contained enough biological warfare agent to kill a city, but to humans they were just emergency rations. Captain, these spores are really fresh, Juan reported, much better than the stale ones we got from their fleet. Should we take all of them? Take everything, Oh ordered, and see if you can find their recipe books. I want to know how they make these things so tasty. The Vorak defenders watched in horror as humans looted their biological warfare facility like it was a restaurant. The aliens had spent decades perfecting these weapons only to watch enemies treat them as food supplies. Commander and Eugene received the strangest prisoner report in military history. The humans had captured a Vorak scientist named Kethmore who specialized in spore production. Instead of interrogating him about weapons, they asked him about cooking methods. You want to know how to prepare spores for eating? Kethmore asked in disbelief. No species has ever asked me that before. Usually they just die. The human interrogator Corporal Ru Donghyun offered the alien scientist a bowl of spore stew. We found your personal recipe notes in the lab. This one tastes really good. Did you add any special ingredients? Skether stared at the human eating concentrated death like it was soup. This was not possible. His spores were designed to kill any biological life form within minutes, yet this creature was enjoying them like a meal. Meanwhile on Earth, the spore discovery was changing everything. Restaurants competed to create the best spore dishes. Scientists studied the nutritional benefits. Farmers investigated spore cultivation techniques. Dr. Yoon Hae-jin's sister, Dr. Yoon Soo-jin, had taken over the spore research program. Her findings were revolutionary. Human digestive systems were not just immune to the alien weapon, they actually extracted more energy from spores than from any normal food. We have found the perfect survival food, Dr. Yoon reported to the military council. Spores provide complete nutrition with no waste products. Soldiers eating spore rations have increased strength, endurance, and mental clarity. The psychological warfare was working better than any weapon. Admiral Bae Young-suk watched intelligence reports showing Vorak morale collapsing throughout their empire. The aliens who had ruled through terror were now terrified themselves. Bae decided to increase the pressure. She ordered all human ships to broadcast meal preparation videos showing soldiers cooking and eating spore weapons. The recordings were sent to every Vorak communication network. Private Park Jin-woo became famous across the galaxy for his cooking show, Adventures in Spore Cuisine. He demonstrated dozens of ways to prepare alien biological weapons, from simple boiled spores to complex spore casseroles. Thank you, General Dexmore, for this week's spore delivery, Park said in his latest broadcast. The concentrated death variant has a wonderful tangy flavor that goes great with vegetables. The Vorak general, watching the broadcast through his communication device across the room, his ultimate weapons had become entertainment for enemy soldiers. This war had become a nightmare. The terror spread to other alien species as well. The Galactic Council emergency session was chaos when Ambassador Lee Hyung-woo arrived carrying a briefcase full of spore samples. Honorable delegates, Lee announced, I would like to share with you some samples of what humans consider a delicacy. He opened containers of cooked spores and offered them to the alien representatives. Most delegates fled the chamber in panic. A few brave species tried small tastes and immediately became violently ill. Only humans can safely consume these organisms, Lee explained while eating a spore sandwich. This gives us a unique advantage in any conflict involving biological warfare. The political implications were staggering. The Vorak Empire had built their power on fear of spore weapons. Now that humans could eat those weapons, the Empire's foundation was crumbling. Worlds that had been conquered by the Vorak began sending secret messages to Earth asking for human protection. They knew that if humans arrived, any spore attack would just feed the defenders instead of killing them. Captain Lim Tae-young led the first liberation mission to a former Vorak colony. The planet Zarian had been under spore bombardment for years, keeping the population enslaved. Now human ships arrived offering a different kind of protection. The Vorak garrison on Zarian tried their standard defense. They released massive spore clouds to kill the invading humans, but Captain Lim just opened his ship's cargo doors and collected them all. Attention Zarian population, Lim broadcast while eating a fresh spore meal. You are now under human protection. Any further biological attacks will be considered catering services. The Vorak garrison surrendered without firing another shot. Their weapons had become enemy supplies and their psychological advantage was completely gone back. On Vorak, Prime Emperor Korthik faced reports he could not believe humans were liberating Vorak colonies by eating spore weapons. The empire that had lasted for thousands of years was falling apart. Your Majesty, General Vexmore reported from the front lines. The humans are not normal. They do things that should be impossible. Our greatest strength has become their advantage. The Emperor had ruled through fear for centuries, but now he was learning what terror felt like. Humans had turned biological warfare on its head. They had made the galaxy's deadliest weapon into a food source. This cannot continue, Korthik declared. We must find another way to defeat them. What weapons do we have that they cannot eat? But the Vorak had focused on biological warfare for so long that their other weapons were weak and outdated. They had conquered the galaxy with spores, and now those same spores were feeding their enemies. Lieutenant Colonel Choi Min-ho summarized the situation in his report to Earth Command. The Vorak Empire is experiencing total psychological collapse. Their soldiers refuse to use spore weapons because they know it just feeds us. Their colonies are rebelling because they want human protection from biological attacks. The war was far from over, but the balance had completely shifted. Humans had found the one thing no alien species had ever imagined possible. They had turned the galaxy's ultimate weapon into their ultimate advantage. The conquerors had become the terrorized, and the terrorized had become well-fed. Colonel Han So-young stood on the bridge of her battleship watching the Vorak fleet prepare their spore attack. The blue-skinned aliens had no idea what was about to happen. They thought they were looking at helpless humans who would die like all the others. Launched spore clouds, the Vorak commander ordered from his flagship. Thousands of containers opened and released the deadly organisms into space. The silver cloud drifted toward the human ships like a beautiful death, but instead of running away, Colonel Han gave a different order. All ships open your cargo bays. Collect as much of that spore cloud as you can. We are going to have dinner tonight. The Vorak watched in confusion as human ships flew directly into the spore attack. Instead of trying to escape, cargo doors opened wide and the ships began sucking in the deadly organisms like they were collecting space dust. Private Namkite was in charge of spore collection on Han's ship. He filled container after container with the alien weapon while wearing just a basic space suit. The organisms that would have killed any other species could not even hurt him through his suit. Commander, this is incredible, Nam said over the radio. We have collected enough spores to feed the entire fleet for a week. These aliens just gave us a free meal. Colonel Han smiled as she watched her crew work. The Vorak had spent centuries perfecting these biological weapons. They had used them to conquer dozens of worlds. Now humans were treating them like a grocery delivery in the ship's kitchen. Chef Sergeant Park Jinwoo was already preparing the first spore meal. He had been experimenting with different cooking methods since the discovery. Boiled spores tasted like chicken. Fried spores were crispy, and salty spore soup was filling and nutritious. The Vorak flagship received reports that made no sense to them. Sir, the humans are not dying from the spore attack. They are collecting the spores and taking them into their ships. General Dexmore grabbed the radio. This is impossible. No species can survive direct spore exposure. Launch more containers. Use everything we have. The Vorak released their entire spore arsenal. Millions of deadly organisms filled the space between the two fleets. It was enough biological warfare to kill everything on a planet, but the humans just opened more cargo doors and collected it all private. Nam started laughing as he filled his 100th container. The aliens keep giving us more food, sir. Should I tell them we are getting full on the bridge? Colonel Han activated the communication system. She wanted to talk to the Vorak commander. General Lexmore, this is Colonel Han So Young of the human fleet. I want to thank you for this wonderful meal. The alien general appeared on screen. His blue face showed complete confusion. What are you talking about, human? Those spores will kill you within minutes. Han held up a bowl of spore soup and took a big drink. Thank you for the recipe, General. These taste much better than our military rations. Could you send some more? We have a big fleet to feed. General Vexmore watched in horror as the human commander drank a bowl of concentrated spore organisms. She should have been dead before the liquid reached her stomach. Instead, she was asking for more. This is not possible, Vexmore said. No life form can consume battle spores. You are lying. This is some kind of trick. Han called Private Nam to the bridge. Nam, bring one of those fresh spore containers to show. Our alien friend Nam arrived carrying a container of pure spore organisms, the kind that would kill a Vorak in seconds. He opened the container and drank it like water while the alien general watched. More, please, Nam said, wiping his mouth. These are really good. Can we get the recipe so we can make them at home? The psychological effect on the Vorak fleet was immediate. Soldiers who had spent their lives using biological warfare watched humans eat their ultimate weapon like candy. Many alien crew members became sick just watching it happen. Admiral Bae Young-suk arrived with the main human fleet while the Vorak were still in shock. She had heard about the spore discovery and brought empty cargo ships to collect as much as possible. Admiral, the Vorak are trying to retreat, Han reported, but they keep dropping spore containers as they run. Should we collect those too? Of course, Bae replied. We can never have too much food. And send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we have solved the military ration problem. The human fleet began chasing the fleeing Vorak ships, not to attack them, but to collect the spores they kept dropping. Every time the aliens tried to use their biological weapons, humans treated it like a supply delivery back. On Earth, the news was spreading fast. Humans could eat the galaxy's deadliest weapon. Restaurants were calling the military asking for spore samples. Scientists wanted to study the nutritional value. Farmers wondered if they could grow spores as Crops. Ambassador Li Haiyan-Wu was preparing for an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The political implications were enormous. If humans could eat spore weapons, then the balance of power in the galaxy had completely changed. But first, Li wanted to try the spores himself. He had been military before becoming a diplomat, and he trusted his soldiers. If they said spores were good food, then he would try them. Dr. Song Mire prepared a small sample for the ambassador. She had been studying the spores since the discovery. Her research showed that human digestive systems could not only handle the organisms but actually gained more nutrition from them than from regular food. Ambassador Li drank the spore sample and waited. He felt a warm feeling in his stomach and a surge of energy. It was like drinking the best energy drink he had ever tasted. I understand now, Li said to Dr. Song. The Vorak think they are giving us poison, but to humans this is better than any supplement we have ever created. The ambassador packed several containers of prepared spores for his trip to the Galactic Council. He wanted to show the other species exactly how humans dealt with biological warfare. Meanwhile, the fleeing Vorak fleet was in complete panic. They had used every spore weapon they had, and the humans had eaten all of it. Their ultimate conquest tool had become enemy rations. General Vexmore sent desperate messages to Vorak Command. The humans are not normal. They consume our spores like food. Request immediate assistance before they eat our entire biological warfare division. But Vorak Command thought their general had gone insane. No species could eat spores and live. It was physically impossible. The Empire had tested their weapons on hundreds of different life forms. All of them died. The truth was slowly spreading through alien communication networks. Humans had found a way to counter the Vorak Empire's greatest advantage. The species that had ruled the galaxy through biological terror now faced enemies who treated their weapons as meals. Colonel Han prepared for the next phase of the war. She had collected enough spores to feed her fleet for months. Now it was time to show the galaxy what humans could do. When they were well fed, the feast of war had begun, and humans were the only ones eating. Captain Kim Tae-ho opened the container and drank the alien organisms like they were soup. He expected to die within minutes just like everyone else. But something strange happened instead. His throat did not burn, his lungs did not fill with blood. He did not fall to the floor screaming in pain. Instead, Kim felt something he had not felt in hours. He felt full. The hunger that had been eating at his stomach was gone. He actually felt better than he had in days, more energy, more strength, like he had just eaten the best meal of his life. Kim waited for death to come. He sat in the medical bay surrounded by the bodies of his friends and waited to die like them. But minutes passed, then an hour, then 2 hours. He was still alive. The alien weapon that had killed 300 people was sitting in his stomach doing nothing. Lieutenant Colonel Choi Min-ho found Kim 6 hours later. Choi had arrived with a rescue ship expecting to find everyone dead. Instead, he found Kim alive and looking healthier than anyone had a right to look after watching their entire crew die. Captain, what happened here? Choi asked, looking around at all the bodies. How are you still alive? Did you find some kind of cure? Kim laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. He pointed to the empty container on the lab table. I ate them, Min-ho. I ate the things that killed everyone else. And instead of killing me, they made me feel better. Choi stared at Kim like he had gone crazy. That is impossible, Kim. Those organisms kill everything they touch. The aliens have used them to destroy dozens of worlds. Nothing can survive them. But I did survive them, Kim said, and not just survive. I think they actually fed me like food, Min-ho, like actual food. Dr. Yoon Hae-jin had been Choi's friend for many years. He looked at her body on the floor and felt anger burning in his chest. She had been studying these organisms when they killed her. Now Kim was telling him he had eaten them and lived. Choi called for the medical team from his ship. Dr. Lee Hyun-woo came running with his equipment. He was the best doctor in the human fleet. If anyone could figure out what had happened to Kim, it would be him. Dr. Lee ran every test he could think of. He scanned Kim from head to toe. He took blood samples and tissue samples. He even used the alien medical equipment they had captured from other battles. Everything he found made no sense. The organisms are still in your body, Captain Lee said, looking at his scanner readings. They are in your stomach and intestines, but they are not attacking your cells. They are being broken down like normal food. Your body is digesting them. That is impossible. Choi said every species in the galaxy dies from these things. The Vorak use them because they kill everything. The Galactic Council fears them more than any other weapon. But the scanner does not lie, Lee replied. Captain Kim's digestive system is breaking down the organisms and absorbing them as nutrients. His body is treating the deadliest weapon in the galaxy like a protein shake. Kim felt his stomach rumble. He was getting hungry again, which seemed insane after what had just happened. Do we have any more of those organisms? I think I could eat some more. Dr. Lee stared at him. Are you serious? You want to eat more of the things that killed your entire crew? I am hungry, Kim said, and they tasted better than military rations. If my body can handle them, why not? The news spread through the rescue fleet like wildfire. Captain Kim had eaten the alien superweapon and lived, not only lived, but wanted more. The soldiers could not believe it. The officers thought it was a joke, but the medical scans did not lie. General Park the Jin arrived on Luna Station 12 hours later. She was the head of human military forces, and she needed to see this impossible thing with her own eyes. She found Kim eating another container of organisms like they were emergency rations. Captain, she said, watching him eat the deadly weapon. Are you telling me that humans can digest these organisms safely? Kim nodded between bites. It seems that way, General. My stomach acid breaks them down just like any other food, maybe better than other food. I have more energy now than I have had in months, General. Park called an emergency meeting with all the top human commanders. She explained what Kim had discovered and showed them the medical scans. The room was silent for a long time. Colonel Han So-young was the first to speak. If this is true, if humans can eat these organisms, then the aliens just gave us their biggest advantage. They have been using biological warfare for centuries, but it only works if the biology is vulnerable. Commander Yujin leaned forward in his chair. General, what if we tested this on other humans? What if Captain Kim is not unique? What if all humans can do this? That's exactly what we are going to do, General Park said. We are going to test small amounts on volunteers if humans can really digest these organisms. Then this war just changed completely. The first volunteer was Sergeant Kwon Yoon Soo. She had lost her entire squad to the alien weapon and wanted revenge. She drank a small sample of the organisms and weighted everyone in the medical bay held there. Breath, nothing happened. Sergeant Kwon did not die. She did not even get sick. She just felt full and satisfied, like she had eaten a good meal. The organisms that had killed her friends were now feeding her. The second volunteer was Private Oh Sung-min. Then Commander Lim Tae-young, then dozens of other soldiers. Every single human who tried it had the same result. The deadly alien weapon became human food doctor. Lee worked day and night to understand how this was possible. He studied human digestive systems and compared them to alien biology. What he found changed everything they knew about the war. Human stomach acid is stronger than most species. Lee explained to the command staff, our digestive bacteria are more aggressive. Our intestines are designed to handle toxins that would kill other life forms. Humans evolved to eat almost anything, and apparently that includes alien super weapons. The psychological impact on the human forces was immediate. Soldiers who had been terrified of the alien spore attacks now laughed at them. The weapon that had made the Vorak Empire the most feared force in the galaxy was now considered a free meal, but the real impact was on the aliens themselves. The Vorak had built their entire empire on these organisms. They had conquered world after world using biological warfare. Now they faced an enemy that could eat their ultimate weapon like soup. General Vexmore of the Vorak Empire received the reports from his spies but refused to believe them. Humans eating spore weapons and surviving it was impossible. No species in galactic history had ever been immune to the spores, but the evidence kept coming. Human ships were now flying directly into spore clouds instead of running away. Human soldiers were collecting the organisms in containers and taking them back to their ships as rations. The war that had seemed like an easy victory for the Vorak was becoming something else entirely. They faced an enemy that grew stronger from their attacks. An enemy that treated their most deadly weapon as a food source. For the first time in centuries, the Vorak Empire felt something they had never experienced before. They felt afraid. Captain Kim Tae-ho stood on the bridge of his ship and looked out at the stars. He had been waiting for this day his whole life. The day humans would meet other life forms in space, but now that it was happening, he felt scared instead of excited. The alien ships were huge, much bigger than any human ship. They looked like giant metal beetles floating in the darkness around Luna Station. Their blue hulls gleamed under the station lights, and Kim could see strange symbols carved into their sides. His radio crackled to life. Lieutenant Park Jin-woo was speaking from the station. His voice sounded worried. Captain, we are getting strange readings from the alien ships. They are releasing something into space around us. Kim grabbed his radio and spoke back. What kind of something, Park? Can you tell what it is? The young lieutenant paused before answering. Sir, it looks like some kind of gas or maybe tiny particles. The computers cannot identify what it is, but it is spreading fast toward the station. Through his ship window, Kim could see a thin cloud drifting toward Luna Station. It looked harmless, like morning fog on Earth, but something about it made his skin crawl. The alien ships had not said a word to the humans. They had just appeared and started releasing this mystery substance. Dr. Yoon Hae-jin came running onto the bridge. Her face was pale and she was holding a data tablet. Captain, I just got the readings from our sensors. The substance the aliens released, it is not just gas, it is made of living organisms, millions of tiny living things. Kim felt his stomach drop. Living things like bacteria or viruses. Worse than that, the doctor said. The computer analysis shows these organisms eat other living tissue. They consume it from the inside out. Every species we have data on would die from exposure within hours. The captain looked back at Luna Station, where 300 human soldiers and scientists were working. They had no idea death was floating toward them in a pretty silver cloud. Kim grabbed the radio again. All stations, this is Captain Kim, Emergency Protocol 7. Seal all airlocks and activate emergency life support. The alien substance is dangerous. I repeat, the alien substance will kill you. But it was too late. The cloud had already reached the station. Kim watched in horror as it seeped through the outer hull like it was made of paper. The aliens had designed these tiny killers to get through any barrier. Private Nam Ki-tae was on guard duty in Sector 7. When the cloud reached him, he felt a tickle in his throat and coughed once, then twice. Then he could not stop coughing. He fell to his knees as something started eating him from inside his lungs. Lieutenant Park Jinwoo tried to help, but the cloud was everywhere now. It filled the quarters like smoke. Park put on his breathing mask, but the tiny organisms went through it like it was not there. Within minutes, he was on the floor next to Nam, both men dying as the alien weapon consumed their bodies. In the medical bay, Dr. Yoon watched her screens in horror. The life signs of the station crew were dropping fast. The alien organisms were working exactly as designed. They ate living tissue and used it to make more of themselves. Each person who died made the cloud stronger and deadlier. Sergeant Lee Doan was in the weapons room when the attack started. She managed to get a message out to Kim before the organisms reached her. Captain, the aliens are not trying to talk to us. This is not first contact. This is war. They want to kill us all. Kim felt helpless as he watched his people die through the security cameras. The aliens had turned biological warfare into an art form. Their tiny weapons were perfect killers designed to destroy any life form they met. This must be how they conquered other worlds. Just release the cloud and wait for everything. Today the alien ships remained silent. They did not demand surrender or try to communicate. They just waited and watched as their weapons did the work. Kim realized with growing horror that humans were just another species to be exterminated. The aliens probably did this to dozens of worlds. In less than 2 hours, half the station crew was dead. The other half were dying. The alien organisms were spreading through every part of Luna Station. Nothing could stop them. They ate through filters, went around sealed doors, and found every human hiding place. Kim tried everything. He fired weapons at the alien ships, but their shields were too strong. He called for help, but Earth was too far away. He even tried to ram his ship into theirs, but they just moved out of the way. The aliens were patient. They knew their weapons would do all the work. Dr. Yoon was one of the last to die. She used her final minutes to study the organisms under a microscope. What she found made her blood freeze. These creatures were not natural. They had been designed and built by the aliens. Weapons disguised as living things, perfect killers that could destroy any biological life. She managed to send one last message to Kim. Captain, these organisms, they are the perfect weapon against any normal life form. Nothing in the galaxy could survive them. But maybe, just maybe, there is something different about humans, something the aliens do not know. Then the organisms reached her and Dr. Yoon died like all the others. Kim was alone now. His entire crew dead, his people on Luna Station dead. The alien ships just floated there waiting for him to die too. But Kim refused to give up. He was human and humans never quit fighting. He looked at the data Dr. Yoon had sent him, the information about these alien killers. Maybe there was something he could do. Maybe humans had some advantage the aliens did not expect. He just had to figure out what it was before he died like everyone else. The supply ship that was bringing food to Luna Station had been destroyed in the first attack. All the emergency rations were gone. Kim was getting hungry and there was no food left anywhere, but there was something else, something that might just be crazy enough to work in. The medical bay samples of the alien organisms sat in containers. Dr. Yoon had been studying them when she died. Kim looked at those containers and made a decision that would change everything. He was hungry. The organisms were there, and he had nothing left to lose. What happened next would shock the entire galaxy and turn the war completely around, but Kim did not know that yet. He just knew he was hungry and desperate and willing to try anything to survive. The moment Kim opened that container and raised it to his mouth was the moment everything changed, the moment the war took a turn no alien in the galaxy could have predicted, the moment humanity showed why they were different from every other species in space.